The planning of the session, so sorry to start a little late. The planning of the session, we are going to have an introduction about the WASH roadmap and why is there a WASH roadmap. I don't know if you still hear me. Can you? Okay. And then we are going to go through 4 initiatives and then we will conclude together. So first question, why was the WASH roadmap created and what is it? What is the WASH roadmap? So I'm going to guide you through that. If you could close the door, someone come close the door maybe. So let's have a look at why was the WASH roadmap created. The first thing is to come back a little to what we call the fragile conflict and violence settings. This represents more or less 40 countries, which is 20% of the entire countries of the planet. And in these settings, you are going to have humanitarian issues, especially connected to conflict. So as you can see, the countries are divided in very high risk or high risks of conflict. A second point which is important to know is that there is a way to measure the people in need of humanitarian assistance, and this is called the PIN, people in need. The blue line here shows how the people in need number is growing year after year. And obviously, last year, we reached 340 million people in need. I don't speak for the WASH sector, I speak for the entire sectors. What is interesting also to see is that WASH is half of that. So last year, we had 165 million people affected by humanitarian crisis for the WASH sector. So the WASH sector represents more or less half of the people in need of humanitarian assistance. Another figure which is pretty interesting is the forcibly displaced population. Last year, we broke the 100 million people forcibly displaced. So when we speak about displaced people, people who are moving either inside their country or outside their country, we speak about more than 100 million people. What we can see is that most of these people, 60%, are internally displaced. Okay. What we can see also is that the climate crisis represents 33% of them. So we have been speaking a lot about the climate in this conference, where the climate is also responsible of 33% of the people moving, from a critical context. When we look now at the funding of the humanitarian response, first, you can see that the funding is growing more slowly than the crisis itself, year after year. And for example, last year in 2023, the allocation of funds was $55 billion for all the sectors together. Okay? When we look at the WASH sector, we are just speaking of $4 billion. So the WASH sector, the humanitarian WASH sector, asked for $4 billion last year to cope with the crisis. This represents 7% of the total humanitarian assistance in terms of budget. So to summarize, you have here on the left the number of people in need, 340 million last year. Half of them are connected to the WASH sector, okay? And here on the right, you see the global budget that was required, 55 billion. The requirement for the WASH sector, 4 billion. And what we got, 1.3 billion. So this is a very important point. First, we ask for 4 billion, which is not a lot, and then we receive only 1.3 billion, meaning that 70% of the people cannot be touched by the humanitarian WASH assistance. And I don't speak about the issues connected to accessibility. We all know that in conflict areas, it's extremely difficult to access the areas. I just speak about the funding. The sector is underfunded massively. And of course, there is an impact, a direct impact in terms of life and death of people. This has been very well documented by UNICEF, who is a partner also of the WASH Roadmap. We know, for example, one data which is pretty interesting, it's that in conflict areas, if you are under 5 children, the risk of dying from diarrhea will be multiplied by 20. Okay? So a fragile context, a conflict area, is going to exacerbate your risk in terms of public health. And you can see here also the red colored data show that how a conflict can interfere with public health data. So the problem of a conflict, it's not only the displacement of people, the people killed or injured, but it's also the impact on public health, especially connected to water-related diseases. When we look at the sectors that are directly involved in a humanitarian response, so you see that you have all the sectors here in circle. The first thing we need to acknowledge is that WASH is one of them, but it's connected with many of them. You are not going to respond to health in humanitarian context without WASH. For example, WASH in the health centers. You're not going to provide food without WASH, etc. So the WASH sector is not only a sector by itself, but it's also contributing to the other humanitarian sectors. The second point is when we respond to a crisis, the response is only one element of a sort of nexus between the preparedness and the recovery. So the response to a crisis, and we've got someone from Palestine here, the response to a crisis, it's not a 1 year, a 2 year, a 3 year response. Most of the time now we are speaking about decades, okay? So we are entering in a sort of nexus process. So based on all these points, now we can say what is the WASH Roadmap and why it was created. So the first thing is that we are speaking of a collective platform that has been designed for 5 years. It may be extended, but it has been a 5-year initiative to highlight the needs in humanitarian settings for the WASH sector. And the objective for the platform was first to highlight the risks, but also to answer to the risk and to build the capacity of the sector. There is a timeline on that. All started. Sorry, if you can close the door. Thank you. Thank you. So there is a timeline connected to that. The first point was an alert given by Doctors Without Borders in 2014. Based on this report, there's been a meeting of the interagency WASH group to try to find an answer to that. And then the Global WASH Cluster in 2019 proposed 5 recommendations. And those recommendations have been used to design the WASH Roadmap. So you see there is an history behind that. There's a background. These are the 5 strategic recommendations from the Global WASH Cluster. The first one, the WASH sector is a core sector for survival and protection. If you don't have a WASH answer in a conflict area, people are going to die not only because of the bombs, but also because of the diarrhea. Okay, so we are a core survival sector. The second thing is that our answers, our humanitarian answers, should be timely, obviously, and efficient. Why efficient? Because, as we saw, there is not a lot of money on the table. Okay, so we need to design responses that are timely and efficient. We plan also to have a predictability on the responses. We know that some crisis will come. We can anticipate that with disaster risk management, for example, and this is part also of the roadmap. And finally, something very important, we ask for more financial resources, but also more flexible financial resources. And this is very connected also with the commitments of the World Humanitarian Summit. So we want more money for a longer time and more flexible. This is what we ask for. And the last point is also very important. As we saw, the crises today are about decades, and so we are connected with the development agenda. And this is what is called the nexus. You are going to answer to a crisis, but keeping in mind all the development mechanisms behind the crisis. The WASH roadmap is a group of actors. I show you that because if you're not there, and if you want to be there, then you will have the opportunity to join us. As you can see, when you look at this group, you have humanitarian NGOs like Action Against Hunger or many other, but you have also UN agencies, you have academics, universities, and you have countries. We have 4 countries on board, and the objective is also to have more countries on board. Okay, so it's not only WASH actors, engineers, whatever, it's all the sector who is supporting the humanitarian WASH response, from the governments to the NGOs. So there is, for the moment, around 40 members. It's growing every day. There is an executive committee and there is a secretariat. So there is an organization behind that. And finally, we have the initiative. There are 8 big initiatives that you can see here, which are supporting the collective. When you look at those initiatives, we are going to speak about 4 of them: the WASH Hub, accountability and quality assurance, the nexus, and the advocacy. Okay? But these are 4 initiatives. There are altogether 8 initiatives. So we think that with these 8 initiatives, we are going to build the capacity of the sector to be more effective and more efficient. And now we are going to start with the initiative 1. So Robert Gensch from German Toilet Organization is going to take the floor for 15 minutes. So Robert, please take the floor. Maybe someone can give a help.
Yeah, but online we do, Robert.
Okay.
All right. Robert, you're online?
Yes, I am. And the online community can hear me, but I'm not sure whether you can hear me in the room.
We can hear you perfectly.
Okay, excellent. Great. So then I would like to take the opportunity to introduce you to Initiative 1 of the WASH roadmap, which is what we call the WASH Hub. And yeah, it's kind of a collective approach to knowledge management. And maybe you can skip to the next slide.
Yeah, hold on.
And the currently involved organizations are those that you can see here on the slide. And yeah.
1 minute, Robert, sorry. Give me 1 minute.
Come again?
Can you put
okay.
Full screen? Like it was? Go up, go up, go up. Sorry, give us 1 minute.
No worries.
It's here. It's here. Can I have it full screen? It was like this. Thank you. Yes, you can go ahead, Robert, and I will pass the slides if you like.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, as I said, we are a group of organizations, as you can see here on the slide, and also as Jean mentioned, it's an open collective. So if you're eager to join us in our effort with the Wash Hub, you're most welcome to join. Then maybe moving on to the next slide.
Go ahead.
Yes. So why are we doing this whole exercise? Because there are some obvious knowledge management challenges that we face in the sector. We do know that there is not a lot of knowledge out there. There are a lot of tools and resources, but it's often fragmented, hard to find, difficult to assess in terms of quality and relevance. And as we also know, particularly in the humanitarian sphere, there's a high turnover of staff. So you have to always onboard new staff, also local staff that needs to be oriented, and they need to know where to find information. Unfortunately, a lot of the information is only available in very few languages.
You need to speak a little higher, please, Robert.
Okay. So the information are usually only available in very few languages, which is mainly English, a bit French, a bit Spanish, a bit Arabic, but that's usually it. So all the other languages are quite often not covered, and that's also a huge barrier to get the information across. And last but not least, there's also an issue with that a lot of the resources are actually hidden on individual expert laptops and also hidden in the internal databases of the different agencies. And we are trying to get all those information out of those individual laptops and the databases and make them available to a much wider audience. Hence, the Wash Hub plans to be this coordinated sector effort and this one-stop shop or first go-to point for practitioners in the field to get structured access to all the available knowledge. It doesn't necessarily mean that the Wash Hub itself has to host all the knowledge on the platform, but it can also signpost to what's already there. So there's no intention of duplicating any efforts that the sector has already made.
We cannot hear you very well, Robert. Can you speak a little louder, please? Sorry.
I try to as loud as possible. Let's see if I can adjust that a little bit. So, yeah. So the biggest issue is actually to have the information curated and then also to, align the approaches of the different agencies and speak with a stronger voice jointly. And also with a focus more on the local actors and making all this wealth of knowledge available in various languages. And then please skip to the next slide. So the idea is to compile all the knowledge, all the different tools, resources, and platforms, the information from different sector networks, all the existing sector working groups that we either have as part of the Global WASH cluster or also the different WASH roadmap initiatives and various others, as well as all the agency databases and the information stored there, and make them available through 4 different elements, let's say. There's the knowledge hub, which you can see on the left, where kind of all this information you have access to in a structured way. Then It should be the home or the virtual home of all the different thematic sector working groups. And that's as important as having the knowledge available. It's really this community element, this peer-to-peer exchange where we facilitate moderated temporary communities of practice on demand, where certain sector trends and topics can be discussed in more detail, or some gaps. And there's also this help desk function with a team of experts behind, with this remote support component for whatever information you can't find on the platform itself, that there is still some support mechanisms behind. And this is all supported by AI, by artificial intelligence, that helps both in compiling all the information, curating the information, and making them available, tailor-made to the specific needs and the contextual needs of each and every user. Right now, we are in that conceptualization phase. We just had that meeting a few weeks ago, and we are currently in the process of developing a first prototype, which is hopefully ready by October, November. And then, head into the implementation phase next year. So that's in a nutshell what the Wash Hub initiative is all about. And as I said in the beginning, you're most welcome to get actively involved in this whole initiative, either as a contributing partner or also as an observer or sounding board member. And you can also sign into our mailing list and get regular updates on all future developments. So
Okay.
thank you very much.
Yes.
I hope you
And
were able to
now
hear
we
me
are
in the
going
room.
to have a little round of questions. So if someone has a question specifically for this initiative, please take the floor. Any question? No? Yes, please.
Thank you for that clear overview.
Maybe take this one.
Yeah, thank you for that clear overview. I'm also wondering, as you're moving forward, how much you're linking with the other. He can?
Yes, can someone help us? Bring a mic.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Yeah? Robert,
Yes.
you can hear? Okay, yeah. So I would say thank you very much for that overview, very useful. How much are you going to be also linking with the other initiatives? And I'm speaking about our initiative, which is being led by Save the Children. I'm Marielle Snell from Save the Children, based in Amman, Jordan. But we also have IMC and we have MEDAIR, and we're focusing on multi-sectoral aspects of WASH linked to public health emergencies. Could we also make those links with you?
Yes, definitely. So that's the whole idea, to also allow, being kind of the virtual home for all the other initiatives. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can't have your own kind of, platforms or ways of distributing your knowledge, but it should at least be linked also to the platform, or that we can kind of signpost to what's already there. And make all the accumulating knowledge or all the information from the different initiatives also available on the hub.
Thank you very much, Robert. Is there another burning question on this first initiative? Or we can switch to the second one. So the second initiative to be presented is about accountability and quality assurance. So this is also extremely important in humanitarian response. We believe that the people the most affected need the best quality. So please, Gaëtan, take the floor. Speak loud, and Theo, same thing.
Okay, thank you. Jean, can you hear me?
More or less.
Okay, now can you hear me?
I don't know, is it
Okay.
possible to increase the sound outside? try again, please.
Hello, can you hear me clearly?
We are going to try.
Okay. So hello everybody. I'm Gaëtan Bonne. I'm from Solidarité International, and I'm with Théo Williard from Action Against Hunger, and we are going to present you the initiative 3 of the WASH roadmap, which is accountability and quality assurance. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this initiative is led by Solidarité International and Oxfam, but on the behalf of the Global WASH Cluster, and you have several organizations that are participating in it, as you can see on the screen. So as well, this initiative is funded till the end of 2025 by BHA USA. Okay, over to you, Theo, and you can go to the next slide.
Thank you, Gaëtan. I hope you hear me all well. So this initiative, yes, perfect, thanks. This initiative came from a realization that there has been a lack of visibility on WASH intervention to reach a qualitative program according to national and international standards, and to meet expectation of affected population. Thus, there was a necessity to ensure, to guarantee qualitative and people-centric WASH response. We can go on the next slide. So, in 2017, the Global WASH Cluster launched the A2A initiative, and its ultimate goal is to provide the national cluster and their partner a monitoring system that ensures accountability and quality WASH programs. While historically we've been focusing on measuring activities and outputs, and to have like quantitative indicators, like for example, number of people reached. This initiative aims at moving towards actionable metrics and qualitative metrics. As the two examples that we've been given, the percentage of people accessing safe water or percentage of people using latrines. So then, to deploy this initiative, there are 4 main steps. The define step that aims at contextualizing those indicators, for example, the quantity of water, daily quantity of water per person. Then there is the measure phase, that is all the data collection. Then we move on to the adapt step, which is putting in place all the corrective actions. And in the end, the learn phase that aims at capitalizing the lesson learned during the cycle. Thank you very much to you.
Okay, thank you, Theo. So we can move on the next slide, please.
I don't know if you can see the slide on the Zoom.
I can see the slide, but it's not moving. I'm still on the slide. Which
if someone can help. Hello.
Yeah, slides are not moving.
Yeah, we are going to do it. The slide is not moving.
It's fine.
So, sorry, Gaëtan, can you see something?
I can't see the slide moving. It's still staying on the same slide. For me, I don't know if the
Even
same
now?
for the others online. It's still not moving.
I don't know.
Yes, online is not moving.
Sorry?
It's not moving either for others online.
Okay, hold on.
Now it's good. Okay, so currently there are 17 countries which are involved in this initiative, in this AQA initiative. We have 10 pilot countries and 7 new countries which are getting engaged to date. And from these 17 countries, we have 11 countries from Africa. So we can speak as well about some cluster achievement. Like we have 9 clusters with a monitoring framework. So they have tools and methods to 6 clusters that have already produced some quality snapshots. We are going to see an example after this slide. So some other realization as well. Okay, we have online trainings, specific AQA online trainings on the Agora platform, and it's available in English and in French. We have also a toolbox that is available on the Global WASH Cluster website. And we can speak as well about the coordination inside and beyond the WASH cluster with other initiatives that are dealing with quality and accountability. Okay, we can move to the next slide, please.
Maybe just 1 minute, because here we have a little problem of connection. Just to tell again what you said. Basically, we are piloting this AQA initiative on 10 pilot countries, and then it's going to increase, obviously, and we are involving the national cluster in this piloting.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so on this slide, you have an example of a quality snapshot that have been produced in Yemen. And on this quality snapshot, you can see an illustration of key quality indicators from AQA. So you have some outcome on a public health risk, WASH service, and then you have some more people-centered indicators with the satisfaction and accessibility of WASH services. Okay, you can move on the next slide, please.
Yeah, we moved it. It's coming slowly.
Okay, no problem. We will wait.
Excuse me, Gaëtan, it's not very easy.
It's not a problem, it's fine.
Okay, Gaëtan.
Yes. Okay, it's fine now.
I think it's okay.
So, yeah, it's fine. Okay, so I'm going to speak about the next steps on how to engage with AQA initiative. So we aim to align with the humanitarian project cycle workflows. So it's an ongoing process with 6 clusters. We want to align the AQA processes with the HPT workflows. We want to work as well on the definition of roles and responsibilities in corrective action implementation. And we want to think about how to include population as well in this implementation of corrective action. So as Jean was saying before, we also want to replicate the EQA initiative to new countries. So for the moment, we are working with 17 countries, but we are still looking for engage more. We are identifying synergies with other projects as well, like ProWash on scale. We are discussing about how to work together. And we also try to engage with other sectors like CCPM or shelter sector. So how to engage with the EQA initiative? You can engage at the global level through the EQA working group on the WASH roadmap, and you have a QR code on your right, so you can access the EQA webpage on the WASH roadmap website. And at the country level, if you are implementing partners, WASH implementing partners, you can get involved in the EQ initiative through the national WASH cluster in the country you're working.
Thank you, Gaëtan. So now we are going to switch to the Q&A for your initiative. So is there any burning question about the quality assurance in humanitarian context? Yes? Nancy, take the mic. Speak loud. Thank you.
Thanks, Jean. I just want to ask maybe a difficult question about how you're addressing the latest research which shows that people don't engage with feedback mechanisms in humanitarian crises. I know this is an initiative that's been going for a while, but how are you adjusting to that reality in your terms of your new toolkits and so on?
Okay, thanks a lot. Did you hear properly the question, Gaëtan or Theo?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, please.
It's fine. So, like we are measuring an indicators on the feedback on the EQA initiative. So basically, we are gathering information to see if people knows and use this feedback mechanism, but we don't provide like a method to improve how these mechanism feedback are done on the field. Basically, it's more like the AP, accountability for affected population, which is more dealing with developing some new mechanism for feedback.
Thank you very
With
much.
EQA, we are just monitoring how it works.
Thank you. Is there another question for this group, for this initiative? You have a question? No?
If it's possible to open the questions online, Jean?
Yes. Can you open the questions online, please?
No, just making sure that,
if you have one, go ahead, please. Yeah.
Okay, sure, yeah. Hi, Gaëtan and Theo. I was wondering if you could tell us more about the role of states in that initiative and what role you need or expect them to have in the AQ initiative. And especially since we're at the African Water Week, I was wondering, out of the 17 countries, which ones were African states, if you could tell us more about that.
Okay, thank you, Selene, for this question. So basically, the states can participate to AQA through the national cluster, where there is a representative which is usually have a colleague position in the cluster. And during the AQA initiative, this colleague, this person from the state, he can make sure that the contextualization of the quality indicators is following the national standard. It's what we expect from them is to make sure that all the contextualization of the indicators is following the national standard. And the country in Africa we are currently working, it's from the pilot country, it's Mali, Burkina Faso, Mozambique, South Sudan, and Sudan. And now we are engaging with Congo, DRC, Central African Republic, Ethiopia, Somalia, Nigeria, and Cameroon.
Thank you, Gaëtan. Is there another question on the chat? Hello, Solène, can you hear us?
Yeah, there's no question on the chat.
Okay, so thanks a lot. So we are going to switch now to the next initiative, which is the initiative 7. And this one is about the triple nexus. So Thilo, you are going to present us this initiative.
Yes, hello everyone. I hope you can hear me loud enough.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. Sorry I can't be there in person, and thanks for the opportunity to present this, and thanks to the organizers. Hello everyone. My name is Thilo Panzerbeter. I'm the chair of the German WASH network, and I think my colleague Johannes Rück, who's doing a lot and sort of also co-leading this initiative, is online for perhaps questions later. Please go to the next slide, and I'll begin to present our initiative, beginning with basically the rationale why it is there. I think the slide is not changing yet, but I can just proceed to speak, perhaps. Is that okay?
It should come.
Yes, I see it now. Thank you. So I think we're all aware climate change, conflict, and water insecurity are rapidly accelerating the number and magnitude of protracted and recurrent crises globally. And according to the World Economic Forum, water insecurity and water-related ecosystem degradation is ranked in the top 5 risks to global economic, social, and political stability. And with the SDG progress, particularly off track in countries prone to current and protracted crises, with the funding gaps we face, and exposure and vulnerability to shocks and stresses exacerbating these challenges, it's for these reasons that that this initiative is so important. Particularly in fragile contexts, we find it demands 23 times more effort to achieve the SDG target on drinking water than on non-fragile contexts, according to UNICEF. So maybe this much according to the rationale. If you could just move to the next slide, please.
It's coming.
Thank you, I see it. Yeah, the UN Secretary General stated that closer collaboration is needed between humanitarian aid, development, peace efforts, and that this is the only way that we'll be able to achieve the SDGs and leave no one behind. And of course, there are significant structural barriers that must be overcome to break down these silos between humanitarian development and peace pillars. That includes mandates, priorities, planning horizons, funding cycles, but at the same time, and this is what you will find in this purple piece in the middle overlapping the three, there are a lot of principles that unite humanitarian and development actors along with elements of conflict sensitivity and peace building, and that give us a true common ground. Yeah, so we're looking at do no harm, localization, humanity, human rights-based approach, leave no one behind, accountability, sustainability, and resilience. And so, as maybe you're transferring to the next slide, I guess the main message is that it's possible, and there are more principles uniting us than driving us apart. So, within the WASH roadmap, there is this initiative, and I'll touch in the next slides upon, on the one hand, the main sort of product that has come out from this whole thing. It's also here with me. It's a publication, the Joint Operational Framework, and then of course that's come from this piece of work. And here you noticed at the beginning I didn't show the slide with who's all involved in the initiative. I want to use this opportunity to, on the one hand, thank the German Federal Foreign Office, because they've supported heavily our work that we've been doing, and also UNICEF Sanitation Water for All and Global WASH Cluster, who've been heavily involved in driving this also in the past. But you see that when this key output of this publication was created, there were many, many institutions and many, many experts to whom we are very thankful. And you see the logos here on the screen because it wouldn't have been possible without such a consultative process. So this document which basically, outlines steps that we can undertake together, which gives guidance and tries to operationalize this nexus, has on the one hand been consulted in several regional meetings. We had a regional consultation and a regional exchange in Africa and in Asia in the past, and just very recently, and we told them all last week we'd be feeding the results into today's event. We had a regional exchange forum in the MENA region. We were in Gaziantep last week and hosted by Malteser International, had a great meeting which really took practitioners to discuss this whole issue, come up with policy recommendations, which were then presented to a higher level panel to give reflections and feedback, and we'll put in the chat for you in a second the outcomes of this meeting, because this is what it's about. What's the enabling environment that's now needed? How do we develop recommendations and reflect those? And the other way to draw this, sorry, maybe one slide back, I just want to give everyone the opportunity to have a quick look. Now we're on the Q&A already. Please, 2 slides back if possible.
Yeah, I know it's coming. Sorry, Thilo.
Okay, perfect. No problem.
It will appear.
Okay, perfect. Because it's one thing, everyone will also put the link in the chat. You can download this document and of course use it. Maybe one slide back more to the course, correct. And the other thing, in order for people to take up the course, if you go to the slide with the QR code, feel free to use that code to sign up for this course, this online training course that's now been created together with IRC WASH. I'm still not seeing the correct slide, but I'm sure you'll have it in a second, and maybe the slides can also be shared later. Correct, it's this.
Yeah, so we are on the QR code about the course.
Thank you. Okay, no, and basically I just want to advertise this is a great opportunity, a 2.5-hour online course that you can register for. It's free of charge. And together with IRC WASH, this has been created, and there will be further, sort of more deepening courses to complement this one in the future. But I think this is a great entry point for anyone interested. And so maybe let me just end on the last slide, which basically just poses the question, what's next? And this is also outlined in our document. To put the WASH Nexus into practice at country level, these are basically the actions that are recommended. And so this initiative is very open for anyone interested to come in to join us. Since recently, the German WASH Network is now leading this initiative together with VEI, the Dutch operators, and of course looking forward to anyone else's input or experience to take us further in any of these 5 areas you see here on the screen. So thank you very much, and
yes. So thank you very much, Thilo.
Questions if there are any.
We are going to switch to Q&A. So we know that the Nexus is a sort of a monster. No one knows exactly how to figure it. And we know also that it's essential to consider it in humanitarian response. Somewhere the humanitarian agenda is embedded in the development agenda, and some countries already took the path. I think about Indonesia, for example, where you have a dedicated ministry to cope with crisis. And so is there any burning question about the Nexus in the room? I've got 1 question here. 2 questions, yes.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. Thank you for the presentation. I would like just to ask the question about the success story about the Triple Nexus. I'm from Burkina Faso, and the part of peace, the third one, peace, which is involved on the Nexus. The states are not so happy about that, because the target of humanitarian is to be neutral but the idea about joining development, humanitarian, and peace is not so accepted in this area. What did you think about that?
Yes, thank you. And I'll answer quickly, but I'd also ask my colleague Johannes Rück, I know he's online, maybe if he can also open his microphone. The dialogue began a few years ago, actually bringing humanitarian and development actors together. And at the first meetings, peace was not even an issue. Then it quickly became apparent that some voiced peace definitely needs to be included. And as you'll find in the publication, we talk about WASH resilience, conflict sensitivity, and peace building, because I think you're absolutely right. It's at certain, yeah.
Thank you very much. We had another question in the room.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, hi there. Can you hear me? Hi, it's Marielle Snell from Save the Children. You actually inspired me to come here to the Cairo Water Week because I was in your regional forum last week and I was really impressed with what came out there and the dynamics. So thank you for that. My question was in relation to this ongoing work that you're doing right now, linking climate resilience with integrated WASH. There's a whole huge discussion at the UNC conference, which is actually taking place this week, the Water and Health Conference. And what you hear repeatedly, and because I come from the development WASH side, in the last 8 years have been humanitarian solely, is how do we get this systems approach and regulatory frameworks that are being discussed from that humanitarian, from that development side, and how do we link it up with this humanitarian? I.e., this is one of the only sessions here on the humanitarian WASH, and yet when we look at all the statistics that are coming out there, it is implicit that our work, and I wouldn't even call it humanitarian, I would call it humanitarian transitional longer term. The average refugee stays in a camp for how many years? 25 years. So we're not talking about humanitarian here anymore. Fundamentally, I'm asking, in line with the work that you're doing right now, are you looking more also at integrated WASH linked to aspects of water vulnerability? You started to mention that in the meeting last week, in the hybrid Gaziantep meeting. So steps moving forward.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and also just to note, for anyone interested, there's the Routledge Water Scarcity in the Middle East book, which I co-authored with 2 other colleagues, and I think it's also interesting for you, Theo. Thank you.
Thank you. So please.
Thank you so much. I would hand over to Johannes because you mentioned the meeting last week that we had, and Johannes facilitated that. So over to you, Johannes.
We cannot hear you really.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Johannes. I facilitated the meeting which Marielle was talking about in Gaziantep. And I think if we look at areas or contexts where there is not government leadership in place, where we maybe have only de facto authorities, it's quite critical that we all follow a very coordinated approach. Because if there is no functioning regulatory environment, and we see things like water trucking, a very inefficient, unsustainable approach emerging, that we all together look into strategies and work with the private sector on first steps towards early recovery.
Okay, thanks a lot for this. So we are going to switch now to the last initiative, which is the initiative 8, and I will tell you about that. So first, the initiative 8 is about advocacy and a call to action. So I think you understood with this session why we are doing advocacy. The number of crises is growing, the number of people in need of humanitarian assistance is growing, the budget is not really growing, the number of partners is not really growing, so we need to visibilize our action at the highest level. And that's why we created the call to action. So practically, we have an initiative which is about advocacy and the call to action. As you can see, This initiative is led by ACF, UNICEF, and the French Water Partnership. And you can see that inside this initiative, you have a bunch of actors. You have the Global Wash Cluster, but you have also the Water Diplomat, for example, which is a journal that you can access online. You have also advocacy coalitions like Coalition O. You have the ICRC and the IFRC, okay? So the first thing is, what is our advocacy strategy? It's very simple. There are 3 arms. The first arm, we are a group of people. There are 40 members, and there are 205 signatories of the call to action. We need to make the advocacy of all these agencies more effective. So the objective is to identify what are their strengths, in which fora they are going to contribute, do they have access to the political level or not, and then to build an advocacy strategy based on that. So that's the first pillar. The second pillar is to alert on the fact that we are underfunded. So I know the development WASH is also underfunded. But for the humanitarian sector, it's even more critical because at the end of the day, if you're underfunded as humanitarian, you have on your hands the life and death of people. Okay, so we really need to push the governments, to push the donors to move ahead, to fund better the WASH, not only the actions, but also the coordination. I was in Stockholm with the cluster of Central Africa, the WASH cluster, and this year they didn't get any fund for coordination. It's just a little example that, so we need to increase the funds for the operations, but also for the coordination. So that's the second point. And then the third point, which is maybe the more visible, it's the tip of the iceberg, is the call to action. And I'm going to tell you what it is about. So first thing, the call to action is a call which is, it has been launched in 2023 around the water conference, the UN Water Conference, and for the moment it has been signed by 205 organizations, including 4 state members. So if there are some ministers, some political in the room, you know that you can commit to this call, and we are going to see what is there beside the call. So for the moment, it has been signed by Swiss, the French government, Chad, and the Republic of Slovenia, which is pretty interesting in connection with the Human Rights Council and Security Council. So of course, when the government signs, it means that he understands the problems and he commits to change it. If your organization wants to sign the call, it will be the same thing. It means that at least you understand the problem and you will try something to change it collectively. When we speak of the call to action, we speak of 5 points. The first point is to refocus the efforts on people living in fragile conflict and violence settings. So again, we know that there are big issues around development, around the access to water and sanitation, but we know that for the people who are in conflict areas, I'm thinking about Ukraine, I'm thinking about Gaza, I'm thinking about the 40 countries where there is a conflict. Well, for these people, it's absolutely essential. So we ask the governments, we ask the donors, and we ask also the agencies to focus their effort on those people. The second thing is we want to increase the funding. So I don't come back to that. I think you understood it. We have a very limited funding, and we don't receive all the funding. The third point is, and this is also connected to the nexus, when we rebuild infrastructures, we want to build them more resilient. Example, if you rebuild in North Gaza, but I know that now North Gaza it's more complicated, but I remember that ACF, when we started to rebuild in North Gaza, we tried to rebuild in a more resilient way because we know that those infrastructures can be affected again. So somewhere it's a way also to improve the infrastructures that have been destroyed, for example, by a conflict or by a climate issue. The fourth point is essential, and I think we are speaking here with people from MENA and with people from Africa, and it's the promotion of the international humanitarian law. So the call to action is about also preserving, defending, promoting the IHL. We have someone from Palestine. I'm sure you will have a question for that, but because it's absolutely essential also to this call. The countries need to know the call. The implementers, the agencies need to know about the Geneva Convention and the additional protocols. And then, so basically you can be trained on that. There is, for example, the Global Alliance to Spare Water from Armed Conflict, who trains partners and governments and militaries about the Geneva Conventions, okay? And then you need to apply that. So this is the fourth point. And the fifth point, as you can see, it's a different color. Do you know why? Why is it green? It's green because the special envoy has just been nominated, and because now we try to see a recurrence of the UN Water Conference. We know that there will be a UN Water Conference in 2026. And we know that Senegal will be part of that. We are at the African Water Week. And we plan to have another one in 2028, and after we don't know. So we'll need to battle for that, to be sure that there is this governance of the sector that has been missing for 46 years, okay? So you see that there is a progress on that, and here I wanted to thank the WASH Roadmap, and especially Slovenia, who has been pushing for that, for the nomination of the special envoy. So you see all the actors and the governments, they can push in something. This is just a little example. So the picture is about Jabalia camp in the north of Gaza. I'm sure you know about this picture, and it's a sewage that has been targeted, shooted. And basically, again, when we speak about the message number 4 about the IHL, it's about building the capacity of the actors, promoting an exchange of good practices, supporting also data collection, meaning that when an infrastructure is targeted, if you want to engage on a legal procedure, it's good to know where it was and when it was. Okay, so this data collection is very important for advocacy, operational advocacy. And of course, it's also all the access to humanitarian assistance, including equipment and spare parts. So these are some examples that are covered by the point on international humanitarian law. But I would say that the first point is maybe to be aware of the Geneva Convention and of the additional protocols as far as it applies to the WASH sector. So, question, why should I join the roadmap? Why should I sign the call? Well, first I think that the call is not binding. So if a government signs the call, it's not going to be chased to know what he has been doing. It's not binding. It's just a way to say, look, us, Slovenia, or us, France, or us, Chad, we believe in these points. We want to defend these points. Okay, so it's an aspirational call. Secondly, it's going to increase the visibility. For example, if you have an actor like a local NGO or a small international NGO who wants to gain visibility on the international scene, it's a good option to sign the call because your logo will be there, you are going to be visible, you are going to work on the platform. The third thing, it's useful because it's also a way of creating partnerships. If we work on the same topics, then we can build partnerships either for advocacy or operational partnerships. The 5th point is that the call can visibilize one of your specificity. For example, Slovenia is very focused on the international humanitarian law. Okay, and they signed the call last month because that will visibilize their national strategy about IHL. So again, if you find yourself in the call is like a mirror. If you can find yourself in the call, this is going to support your image. And finally, as we say, the call is starting to deliver because, for example, of the nomination of the special envoy. So that means that, yes, it works. It's going slowly because it's very political, but it works. And the more people are on the call, especially countries, especially African, Middle East countries, go and sign the call. Push your governments to sign the call. Connect the governments or the ministers with us and with the roadmap, and we'll help them to take the path. And now I open the door for a Q&A on this advocacy and call to action initiative, and then we will conclude the session. So is there any question on the chat or in the room about the advocacy or the call? Or maybe do you want to say something about Palestine and how you're reacting with that? Thanks a lot.
Thanks for. Thanks, John. Thanks, Jen, for giving this opportunity. Do you hear me? No? Thanks, Jen, for giving this opportunity for me to talk about the situation in Gaza, overall situation, not only the North Gaza, the South Gaza also suffering nowadays because of the war. The problem is not finding talking about the current situation. The problem is not finding money for implementing or rebuilding the destroyed infrastructure. Now the problem is in the accessing the material and accessing the places where you can build or rebuild the infrastructure, because the whole Gaza is now under bomb and shooting. So even the humanitarian people working in Gaza are suffering because they cannot access the safe places. No, there's no place safe in Gaza nowadays. That's why make the challenge for the WASH and WASH parties, WASH sectors, WASH cluster, and all the humanitarian organizations to reach a safe place or to provide even a small assistance to the people in Gaza. For example, we want to supply water to the people who are displaced in camps, but the problem now, because there is no fuel, there is no trucks to move, there is no pumps to run, there is no wells to operate. So this is very complicated issue, and we stuck in all of these restrictions, and we fail to provide a very small assistance to the people there, and people are facing shooting, facing problems like Dayara, facing problems like lack of access to water, lack of access to sanitation, lack of access to hygiene. So this is a very big struggle to us. Thanks.
Yes, thanks a lot. And also the humanitarian access is part of the international humanitarian law. So again, defending the IHL is also defending the access to the people in conflict areas. So it's part of it. But it's you're totally right on that. Is there another question about the advocacy strategy? Do you think that you could commit to that? You could support this type of advocacy strategy? Do you have an advocacy strategy connected to a fragile conflict and violent context? Yes? No? Maybe we can build one together. That could be useful. So what I propose you, maybe Solène, is there any question in the chat?
No, there's no question and no raised hands.
Okay, so I'm going to conclude the session. So I don't know if Mr. Diatta is in the room. I guess he's in the next room. But yeah, Senegal, is going to support the next UN conference. And we started to discuss the roadmap with Senegal, and they are interested. The objective for us is obviously to have the WASH roadmap and the call to action in the UN 2026 conference. We don't want a UN conference without the humanitarian side of it. So we are in exchange with Senegal. To conclude, first, I would recommend that you could be informed, get information from the roadmap, and I will share with you the QR codes just after. So first, be informed. You can become a member of the roadmap, okay? You can become a member if you're interested in accountability and quality assurance, in the Nexus, in the Global Hub, in the intersectoral approach, in advocacy, etc., etc. There are 8 initiatives. I'm sure you will find an initiative that mirrors your own strategy. Okay, so you can be part of that. Then you should sign the call to action. If you're a government, if you're a small agency, it's the same. We need to create a momentum. For the moment, we have 205 organizations who signed. If your organization didn't sign, and you think that all we have been discussing about is important, just sign. Finally, as a member of the roadmap, you can also present it to your partners. You know, you can use other fora to share this, because what we are looking for is more people engaged, more government engaged. At the moment, for example, in Africa, we have Chad. We are discussing with Senegal, we are discussing with Namibia, but it's coming slowly, you know, so if you have any influence at the ministerial level, please take it. And obviously, yes, I think that it's important that all the type of organizations sign the call, but remember that the call is oriented to the governments. We want to change the policies around the human rights, etc. So what I propose now to close the session, we have a little slide where you have 2 QR codes. The one on the left is if you want to know more about the call to action. Before signing, it's good to get informed, so you can go through that. It's in English and in French. And then after that, you will be guided to approach the secretariat of the WASH roadmap and to sign the call. The second QR code is about your feedback and your contact. So if you want to make a feedback on the session, or if you have any questions that are not answered, or any doubts or whatever, feel free to access that. We are interested also to keep your contact. So if you didn't sign the template at the door, you can also just put your email here and we will recontact you. Okay? Thank you a lot for your patience. I know it has not been an easy trip, but we managed to deliver the session. Sorry for all the issues we had with the techniques, but it's like this, okay? And thanks a lot for being here with us. And now we can close the session. Thank you very much.